Hello, hello, and welcome to Self-Care is Sexy. My name is Chris, and I'll be your host. We're a podcast that's here to generate and share self-care ideas with each other. Last episode, I suggested that you get some self-care by making quiet alone time the priority for last week. This helps you to detox from all the overstimulation and really connect with yourself and recharge for whatever's ahead. If you haven't yet had the chance to make that happen, you still have time. Catch all the tips and tricks on how to decompress, detach, and get that supercharged self-care in. You can always find this show on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Stitcher, and even at our website, www.selfcareissexy.com. Okay, I want to give you a quick preview of what to expect from today's show. So today's show, I wanted to veer off topic from all the New Year's reflection exercises and goal setting that you're going to hear from every other podcast on the planet this week, and instead talk about what's making you suck at getting self-care. We can all agree that we need to take better care of ourselves, but how do we get there? How do we make time for it? And what the fuck is actually in our way? But first, a few quick housekeeping notes. So, Happy New Year! We're just about to smack right into 2022 this week, and I'm sure if you're not already, you're about to get overwhelmed by all the dialogue that's surrounding us right now about wanting us to take stock of the past year and the how-to of maximizing your new year and all the goal setting and self-reflection that you could possibly handle right now, right? But I, however, want to talk about something a little more impactful and something that's actually going to help you today. And that is, what if you just suck at taking care of yourself? What do you do? What's actually getting in the way of self-care? And what, if anything, can we do about that? Now, don't get me wrong, goal setting and taking stock, all of that stuff is really healthy and important, but I'd rather just fast forward and just all of us agree that we know we could do better at taking care of ourselves. So why do you suck at self-care? Well, the number one reason is time. Everyone is going to say that they don't take good care of themselves because they just don't have the time. But, my friends, that's a complete lie. Not only do you have the time, but if you don't make the time for self-care, your health is going to do that for you. Something is going to happen to where you're not going to get a choice, and self-care is going to be the only option. So when people say, I suck at self-care because I just don't have the time for it, I've got so much going on, so many other things, time is not your issue. Your issue is making self-care fit in the routine you're already in. Number two, the reason you suck at self-care is because of your negative self-talk. You suck at taking care of yourself because even if you do self-care now and then, the way that you talk to yourself daily, it directly controls how you actually think about yourself. And if that's bad, if that's negative, anything good that you're doing for yourself, any self-care that you're actually doing isn't really going to work. Because you can't undo the negative thinking, the internal monologue, the dialogue that you're having with yourself with external stuff, right? You can't pedicure your way out of thinking you're a giant piece of shit. You can't massage your way into thinking you're worthy of love and care on a daily basis. And on your worst days, when shit's hitting the fan and you've got so much to do, it's not going to be journaling that brings you back to remembering how important it is to put yourself first. It's going to be that internal dialogue that you're having. It's going to be that self-talk. It's going to be the way that you describe yourself to other people, the way you talk about yourself, the way you agree with how others talk about you. That's what's going to really make the difference as to whether or not you're, good or bad at self-care. Number 3, you suck at self-care because you believe that you have to be strong all the time. You've bought into this false idea that you've got to be a badass, that you have to be killing it, that you have to be crushing it, they have to be grinding. And don't get me wrong, being resilient and being able to survive and endure are extremely great qualities, especially the last couple of years. But at some point, you're gonna have to accept the reality that this is just not sustainable belief. This is not a sustainable lifestyle or way to be. You're going to have to get yourself to that place where you find value in the breakdown or in being vulnerable. And you have to start looking at what you're doing to be strong. Because if you're white-knuckling and forcing yourself to be strong and endure and be resilient and just keep plowing forward, then you're not really connecting to your most renewable energy source, which is, again, the way you think about yourself. When you believe that you're a good person and you love yourself, being strong is just a byproduct. But when you're in the mindset, you've got to grind, you've got to go, you've got to produce, you've got to do, you're depleting yourself to the point where all that's important is what you put out and not who you are. All right, number 4, you're beating yourself up for mistakes. You are way too hard on yourself. Even if you do something bad, like very, very bad, like you forgot to pick your kids up from daycare or you forgot to pay your car insurance bill and you remember right after a fender bender, the proportion at which you beat yourself up for those mistakes and how long you draw that out is way the fuck out of control. And it's making the simple act of taking basic care of yourself impossible. You have got to cut yourself a break. You have got to stop beating yourself up for every little tiny fucking mistake. You are human. It is going to happen. And you have to realize that there are probably 1,000 different contributing factors to why you made that mistake. But you are going to default to, because I'm a piece of shit, because I can't get my shit together, because something's wrong with me. And that is wrong. And that belief system is what's actually preventing you from taking self-care. Number 5, you suck at self-care because your self-worth is tied to something external. If you're having a hard time taking care of yourself, if you're really struggling with it, it's probably because you have an underlying belief that you have to earn it. You have to earn love. You have to earn money. You have to earn the time to yourself. You falsely believe that you earn it by having to do something, by producing something, by creating some kind of value for others. And the real truth is that your worthiness, your self-worth, it comes from how you think about yourself. It comes from who you are just sitting there, doing nothing. You are of value. You have value just because you exist. And you personally have an amazing, unique value that no one else has. There is no other you. And if you constantly have your self-worth tied to something outside of you, then you're not in control of whether or not you get to feel worthy. And when that happens, you're not going to take care of yourself. If you don't feel worthy, then you're not going to stop what you're doing right now, rearrange your day, cancel some plans, and make time for that quiet solitude that we talked about. You're not going to do the things to get yourself the rest you deserve. If you internally don't believe that your self-worth is within your own control, you're going to constantly look for it outside of you, and you're going to constantly be disappointed. Number 6, you suck at self-care because you're prioritizing anyone before yourself. Now, notice how I said anyone. Not everyone, but anyone. This includes your children. This includes your ailing mother. This includes your partner who's really struggling at work right now. This even includes your dying friend. Anyone means anyone. You are literally putting anyone before yourself. Not only are you at the back of the list, convincing yourself that once you do all the things for everyone else, then you will get time for self-care or you will make time for self-care. but you are literally looking around you and finding anyone who needs you and putting them ahead of yourself. You're prioritizing what they need. You're putting what they want before yourself. And I know this is extremely difficult for my moms out there to really wrap their brain around this. But I'm going to talk about this in a minute. It's so important that you don't make the fatal mistake of putting your children before you. Now, I know our culture has drilled it into our heads, and there's that whole maternal thing that tells you you absolutely must take care of your children before yourself. And while that's, a biological thing that you can't fight, it's not always healthy, especially if it's imbalanced. Number 7, stressing out about things we can't control. Look, you spend way too much time worried about things that you have no control over. And right now, that's super easy to do. At the start of the year, there's a lot of worry and stress about money. Maybe you overspent for the holidays. Maybe you put on a few pounds. And maybe you're really freaking out about the Omicron variant and your travel plans got shut down or whatever. And there's all these things that we could all sit around and drive ourselves bonkers stressing out about that we have zero control over. You can do your part to keep the pandemic from spreading by, vaccinating, masking up, social distancing, all that stuff. But you can't control the fact that these new variants keep popping up. You can't control the fact that Delta shut down for 2 days. You can't control the fact that soothing with food has been your number one go-to your whole life, and that made you put on a couple pounds over the holiday season. Those are things you can't control, and stressing about them is just going to make self-care this impossible, unobtainable thing. Number 8, you suck at self-care because of the toxic people that you're surrounding yourself with. There are some people that are bringing you down, that drain you. Every time you hang out with them, you just feel like so overwhelmed by all of their problems. And they never help to replenish you. They never help to build you back up. And you really have to start looking at that. When you have toxic people in your life that are taking, right? They're the emotional vampires. These people, you're prioritizing them in front of you. So think about what that's doing internally. What is that telling you internally? You're literally telling yourself that someone who is not good for you deserves your time, your energy, your effort more than you do. This is why you suck at taking care of yourself, because you're literally trying to fight against a belief that you're just reaffirming every time you are Captain Save-'em, you come to the rescue, you try to fix their problem, you try to, loan them money, help them out of a jam. All the things that you're doing for these toxic people in your life, it is taking away from the energy and the love and the time that you could be giving to yourself. So when you say you don't have enough time for self-care, it's because you're on this loop of giving your time to people who don't deserve it. And that can be really difficult to recognize because some of them might be family. Some of them might be best friends. Some of them might actually be your partner. And if you're giving your time and your energy to toxic people, there's not going to be any left over for you. So of course you're going to suck at self-care. Number 9, anxiety is robbing you of self-care. It is taking away your ability to love yourself, and the lack of self-care is contributing to the anxiety. It's a big, giant wheel. And so how do you get off of it? How do you get off the anxiety wheel? Well, of course, the number one way to get off the anxiety wheel is to ground yourself in the present moment. I know I've used this exercise on the show before, but it's that whole name 5 things you can see, name 5 things you can taste, name 5 things you can touch, name 5 things you can hear. Because it's really important that when your anxiety is through the roof and you're just in that frantic place of like, I don't know what to do and I've got so much to do and your brain can't center or focus or ground, that you really tether yourself to the present moment by connecting with your physical body and your senses. And getting into your own breath work and really just recognizing okay, I'm super anxious right now. We don't have to get into therapy to figure out why you're anxious. Who fucking cares why? You just are. Maybe you had too much coffee this morning.